is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make a knotted leather necklace. Now, I had seen this type of knot many times on Pinterest and different things looking at jewelry, and I always thought, I love that knot. I'm going to figure out what that knot is and how to tie that knot. So, I had this idea in my head already of what I wanted to make with it. I just didn't know how to make the knot. So I did a search on YouTube and I found a lady with a YouTube channel. It's called Kelly's Bead Boutique, I believe. And I learned how to make the knot from her. It's her technique. This is my design that I came up with, but I did learn the technique from her. So if you want to check out her channel, it's called Kelly's Bead Boutique, and I will make sure if it's not that, I'll write it in caption. But I learned how to tie the knot from her. She does a lot of really neat leather jewelry. If you're into that, check her channel out. And then I made several different necklaces once I learned how to tie the knot. So I've made in this slate gray kind of black color. I've made it in a white color of cording. I've made it in 2 different colors of brown. And I've just really enjoyed it. It's really fun. I think I'm also going to create a couple other pieces with this knot because it's just so much fun. Anyway, this is what we're going to make in our series of 10-minute projects. This takes a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but not much. It's a pretty fast-moving project. I'd say within 20-30 minutes you should have a nice piece of jewelry. Anyway, let's go ahead and learn how to do this. Okay, so for this project, you are going to need about 2.5 feet of 2mm leather cording. I bought these packages at Michael's, so it gives me a sample of different colors of 2mm leather cording. And they're fairly reasonable, so you can get a couple packages and make a few different colors, maybe some matching pieces, whatever you'd like. So cut 2.5 feet of that, and then I'm going to use about 7 inches of 20 gauge wire. Now this is artistic wire. I also got this at Michael's, but you can find it online at Amazon. eBay probably has it too. You can also find it at Fire Mountain. Places like that should carry artistic wire. And this is 20 gauge tinned copper. And you'll need about 7 inches. And then I'm using a little connector, and this connector is about 16 millimeters across. You can use a little bit bigger, but I wouldn't go much smaller. Connectors are just big closed jump rings. A closed jump ring is when there is not a cut in it so that you can open and close it. Or they're either called closed jump rings or they're called connectors. This one is textured, and you can find these online too. So just put in a search for connectors on Amazon or something like that, or one of the bigger beading supply places, and you should be able to find connectors. You can also find them bigger, and you can find them smaller, like I said. So you want to stay around 16 millimeters. Doesn't have to be exact, just something around there. You will also need 3 large hole beads. These holes are about 4 millimeters in this bead. The bead itself is about 10 millimeters around. So this is a larger bead with a large hole. I bought an entire kit of beads with different size large holes. So it came with several of them that had larger holes. Now you can buy them individually or you can buy a package of them. I bought this. I was shopping on Amazon, and I think it came through Panda Hall store on Amazon. But this is a really nice little kit that I bought. It has all kinds of different beads that I can use with my leather and whenever I want a large hole bead. So you may want to consider, this was something like $18, something like that. It was pretty inexpensive, and I've used it a lot. So that's an option for you. Or you can just find large hole beads and make sure that the hole, they usually put the measurements of the hole is bigger than the leather you're using. So mine's 4 millimeter. So you'll need 3 of those. And then you're going to need a larger bead to dangle from it. I'm using this 14 millimeter glass pearl ivory color. And you can use something a little bigger, something a little smaller. It doesn't matter. You just need a bead that will fit over your 20 gauge wire. So try it on and make sure it'll slide down. Then I have cut a couple of, I actually prepared these with closed jump rings and some small jump rings in between. But all you need is a couple of pieces of chain, and I've slid my clasp on the end of it, and I'll show you how to do that. Or you can just use a piece of chain. Now I have cut these about 5 inches, 5-6 inches long each to put on the end of my necklace. Mine are, yeah, right around 5 inches. And then we'll just open the chain and slide the toggle clasp on it. So prepare 2 pieces. And this is the toggle, and I'm going to show you really quickly so you can have it prepared. All you have to do is open up one of your links, remove 5 inches of chain, and then grab a hold of, this is how you open your chain. You grab a hold of the link, you use 2 pliers, and you just twist, and then you just slide your toggle on the end of it, and then close it like so. Get you close so you can see. And that is how you're going to put your toggle ends on. Just make sure you twist your links, do not pull them open, and then twist them shut again. And that is how you're going to prepare your chain. So you'll need 2 pieces of chain prepared with the toggle clasp on the end. And I'm just using this fancy textured toggle. And then you'll need 2 cord ends. These little cord ends come in all different sizes. There's some smaller than this, and there's some larger than this. They do not list exactly the sizes on the package I bought, but I measured it, and this one is about 9 millimeters from top to bottom, from the very top of the loop here to the bottom, and about 4 millimeters across. These are just fold over cord ends, and you'll want 2 of them. And you can get them a little bit bigger, but I wouldn't get them any smaller than this. So you'll need 2 of those. And then to tie your knots, you're going to need something tubular to slide your cording through. So you want to make sure whatever you use has a big enough opening to slide your leather through, and you can just test it, and you want it to slide through very easily. So just test it like this, make sure it slides in and out off of your leather very well. Now, if you do not have something tubular, what I did with this was I used one of these large tubular beads. It's a little too curved and a little too long for me to use well, so I cut it in half with my wire cutters, which crushed the center, but then I just stuck my round nose pliers in it, straightened it out, like so, opened it up with my chain nose pliers after I crushed it and straightened it out, and then smoothed the end because it's a little rough with an emery board and just smoothed it. Now, if you do not have something like this, then you can use a straw or the casing of a Bic pen or something like that. This is just a little fat, but it does work. So just something tubular to slide your cording through. It's always nice to have a file on hand when you're working with the wire in case you need to smooth something. You can use an emery board also. You'll need your flat nose, your round nose, chain nose pliers. You don't necessarily have to have both of those, but they're nice to have on hand. And then you will need some wire cutters, some flush cutters. Now let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay, to start, I am going to get my connector, my large bead, and my piece of wire. And we're going to make our dangle and hang it off the connector so it's all prepared and ready to connect our leather once we get started with that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece of wire and your round nose pliers, and you are going to just go to the very end. Let me flush cut this. I'm just going to cut the end nice and smooth, and then I am going to put my pliers towards the end of the wire here, at the very end of the wire, and towards the end of the pliers, so that I make a small coil. So I'm just going to turn that wire until I get a little hook like this. Then I'm going to reposition my pliers like this, so that I can continue to turn my wrist and turn a coil. And I'm just going to continue turning, laying a coil on top of the previous turn I made, like so. I'll get you really close so you can see. So I've just got a tiny little coil at the end of my wire. Then I'm going to grab a hold of my flat nose or my chain nose pliers, and I'm just going to hold onto that coil and bend my wire straight up. And I'll show you what I have. So basically just bend it straight up so you have this little golf club looking thing here. So my coil is kind of to the side. And then I'm going to grab my large bead and I'm just going to put it on the coil here. That bead's kind of weird. Let me get another one. There we go. Paint was weird on the end of that one, so I'm just going to slide it all the way down and just pull your wire and straighten it until the bead is laying up against that little coil. Now, if that is rough and sharp on the end, you can file it a little bit. But first, before I do that, I'm just going to place this on my bead mat and I'm just going to push it. You can place it on just a table too and push it. Just push it down so that it kind of squashes a little bit. And then I will kind of play with that end to make sure it's not sharp. Tuck it in a little bit, like so. And you can also file it if that didn't work, but that seemed to work okay. Now that you have your bead on your wire, you're going to pick up your round nose pliers. You're going to place them right on top of the bead, and I'm just going about not quite a quarter down my my pliers here. And then as I'm holding it like this, I'm just going to bend it over the part of the plier that is away from me. I'm just going to bend the wire over the top like this. And then I'm going to turn my wrist and put my pliers into that bend. And then I'm going to bring this wire over the top of this part of the pliers. So just over the top like so. And then I am going to move my wrist forward just a little, turning my coil just slightly, so just a slight turn, and I'm going to bring this wire underneath that part of the nose of the pliers. Just bring it underneath, like so. And this is what you should have, just a little tiny loop, and it's still open. You haven't shed it yet. If you need to, you can open it a little bit more for this next part. So all you do is grab a hold of this side where the long wire is and just open it just a little bit, and then grab your connector and bring it down and slide it on into that loop, like so. Now I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to hold on to this loop right where it's open, right there. And let me get you close again. And then I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to bend it straight out so that it's in line with my pliers, like so. I'm going to back off so you can watch me do this without getting out of camera, and you can see what I'm doing with my wire. Now, my wire is on top here, so I'm going to go underneath and I'm just going to start turning around the part of the wire between the connector and the pearl, and I'm just going to, I'm not worried about laying the layers on top of each other and making a really neat wrap. I've made one wrap and then I've gone over the top of that kind of more towards my pliers, and then I'm just going to wrap up and down, because I want this to be a messy wrap. I don't want it to be all neat. So I'm just wrapping it around. However, as I think with this design, a messy wrap looks kind of cool. So that's why I'm doing that. If you want a really neat wrap, then you'll just make sure as you coil your wire around, you coil on top of the previous coil that you've made. And then you'll make a really neat wrap if that's what you want to do. Now I've wrapped it around until I have just a little bit remaining, and then I'm going to cut that. And then this little tiny piece that's sticking up, after I cut it, I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just gently push that in, which sometimes will distort your wrap, so you'll just have to squeeze your wrap back together. but you don't want that sticking out because it will attach to clothing and stuff like that. And sometimes they're a little stubborn. Let's see if I can get it in there. Okay. Just touch it and make sure it's okay. And there you have your messy wrapped bead right there. This is what it looks like. Now we're going to start with the leather portion of the necklace. So back off. I'm going to grab my leather, and what I'm going to do is bend it in half, but I'm going to leave one cord, one side of the cord, a couple inches longer than the other side. And it doesn't have to be exact, but I'm leaving it just so that you'll know. I'll measure mine. I'm leaving it about 3 inches longer than this side. And then I'm going to go to the looped portion of the leather, the center of my leather, and I'm going to make a loop, holding it with my thumb and finger like this, and then slide it through my connector. And then I'm just going to put my finger in that loop to hold it open, and I'm going to slide the ends of my cord through that loop. And I'm just going to pull my cord down. Now, this is what you should have. Let's get closer. Just slowly and gently pull this over the connector and push it together, and then turn it over. This is the side that I'm going to use for the front of my necklace. However, this side is pretty too, so you can decide which side you want. And this is going to move around and loosen until we get our first couple of knots, so don't worry about it too much. So once you get your little sliding knot on your connector and arranged the way you want it, then you're going to pick up a large hole bead, and you're going to put your cords through that large hole bead. So mine has a little ledge on it, so I just do one at a time. If you want to do them both, that's fine too, but it tends to get kind of caught on the ledge of my bead. So I just do one at a time, and then I pull it down into the sliding knot there. And then I'm going to position my cords, making sure that they're not crossed inside that bead. I have my longer cord towards the outside, which is away from my body. I have my shorter cord towards the inside here. And I'm going to place my tube bead kind of in between, on top and in between these two cords. I'm going to grab this bigger cord here. I'm going to bring it underneath the tube bead, and I'm going to wrap a coil around this tube. And I'm going to wrap towards my connector or towards my left hand, the hand that's holding the tube. I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm using my longer cord. That's why we cut one longer cord, because this particular knot is going to shorten the one you wrap. So you're going to need one longer cord. Now I'm going to reposition my hand just so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm towards the bottom of my coils here. I'm coming out of the bottom, or I'm underneath the bottom of the tube. I'm going to push this cord through the tube here on the portion closest to the connector. And then I'm just going to pull that cord through gently. And then I am going to pull the tube out, like so. And just do this very lightly so that your coils are nice and loose, and you can adjust them the way you would like to adjust them. So I'm going to bring them down. Because they're loose, I can just move them down to my bead here. And the cord that you wrapped with is the one that will tighten. So when you pull on that, you push down on your coils, pull on those cords. I pull on the one that I wrapped with, and it tightens, and then I pull on the other one just to straighten it out. Push them down, pull on the cord. Push them down, arrange them, pull on the cord, until you get a nice looking knot. These knots are pretty forgiving, so you can mess with them quite a bit, like so. Now, this part under here got all squished and weird, so I'm just going to straighten it out, like so. And there is your pretty little knot. Now we're going to separate these two cords, making sure that they're not twisted so that your necklace will lay correctly on your neck. And we're going to tie another knot just a couple inches away. Just depends on where you want your knot to be on your necklace. I want mine to be right about here. So I'm going to place my tube bead right here. And I'm just going to tie another knot, which is one of my cords now. So I'm going to hold my tube right next to my cord. I'm going to start at the top of my tube or towards my right hand, and then I'm going to wrap one complete coil, and then another, and then another, and then another. So 4 coils. When you're coming out towards the bottom of the tube, or not coming out, but stop your coil at the bottom of your tube so that you make sure you have a complete coil. And then I'm going to reposition again just so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put that cord through the tube very gently, and then very gently pull it out, like so. Now I have my loose coils, and I'm going to position my knot where I want it. On this first one, doesn't really matter, you just pick a spot, and then you'll just pull on this side of the cord to tighten it. And just keep doing it until you get it how you want it to look. Right about there is good. I kind of turn my coils until I get them nice towards the front of my necklace so that they look pretty. And then I'm going to slide, no I'm not, I'm going to tie another knot on this side. If you slide your bead on right now, it's a little bit harder to figure out where your coil is going to be placed. So I just, on the next cord, so I just tie both of my knots first, and then I slide my beads on. So I'm going to place my tube just a little below where I put this one, right here, and then I'm going to start tying another knot. So I'm going to go 1 complete wrap, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm at the bottom of my tube bead with my cording. I reposition my hands for you. And then, again, push through the bottom of the tube and very slowly and gently pull out my tube. And then as I do this now with this one, I have to make sure it ends up on the same place on this cord as it is on this cord. So I'm just going to move it around and then pull on this side to tighten it. And so you can kind of spin these coils just a little bit so you can make sure that the prettiest part of the coil is toward the front of your necklace. Let's see. And yeah, so that looks about right. Just stretch your necklace out, making sure that you don't have any discrepancies between one cord or the other. And there you have it. I have 2 knots. Pretty close to each other, almost on the same spot exactly. So you want to get as close as you can. And then now you can see both of my cords are pretty much the same size. That's why you needed one longer one, was because of the knot here. But now you don't have to worry about that because you're using one cord. Now we're going to drop another bead down the cording. And pick up your tube bead. Place it right on top of that bead there. and then start wrapping. 1, 2, actually, I'm going to start this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see how short my cord is, just long enough to go through my tubing. That's why I cut 2.5 feet. Now it seems like an awful lot, and it seems like you have to cut a lot off at the end, but you can't tie your knots if it's any shorter than this. So then up through the tube bead from the bottom of the tube bead, pull it through as much as you can, and then pull out the tube and move your coils down towards your bead. Just very gently, just scoot them down, arrange them how you want them, and then pull on this side of the cord. And I just sandwich my beads between these two knots to hold it in place, like so. Now we're going to do that again on this side. So I'm going to drop another bead down, pick up my tube, place it against my bead, and then begin wrapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. Push it through the bottom of that tube, pull it through as much as you can. Be very gentle with it because these tubes, you don't want them to scrape your leather. Oops. Position my coils. And tighten, like so. And then just make sure everything looks the way you want it to look. There. Thought I was twisted for a minute there, but I'm okay. And that is the main portion of your necklace. Now you will have to decide where you want to cut it to put your cord ends on. And so I'm going to cut mine right about here and put my cord ends on. I don't want mine to be a really long necklace. Let's see, let's look at one of my previous ones I made. So I want to cut it right about there. And you can make this longer if you want. You can put beads on this portion and then put your cord end up here. If you had some large hold beads that you wanted to slide on here, you could do that. And you could just leave it longer here and put your cord ends. It doesn't matter. It's up to you how you want to do it. I just want my necklace to be about 18, 19 inches long. So I am going to cut right here. Oh, let me measure that again with my other necklaces because I like this length. So right about here. And then cut this one like so. Now you're going to grab a cord end. Now this is the tricky part, okay? I'm going to turn this over because I want the folded portion of my cord end towards the back of my necklace. I'm going to place my cord in here. Now if you want to, you could put a tiny bit of hot glue in there and pop it on there so it holds it in place for you. Or you can use some other glue, GS Hypo Cement, whatever you want, E6000. I just find that it's messy and doesn't really work all that well. So I'm going to place my cord in. I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers. The easiest way I have devised to do this is to take my flat nose and kind of squeeze the sides of it shut around my cording a little bit before I fold them down, like so. And then I'm going to go to one side and push straight down. And then I'm going to go to the other side and push it down. Like so. Now, a trick that I found that works really well too, if you have one, a mighty crimper, you can use it to kind of straighten and make it round, make your end round. This looks fine the way it is, but I like to kind of play with it a little bit with my mighty crimper. In the very first divot, it's kind of half moon shaped, or actually kind of round shaped, towards the tip of my pliers, I like to put this on the end and just, it gives me more strength, and I can just squeeze this and make it round and make sure it's very secure. So if you have a pair of these, then you can use them, and it really helps with cord ends. If you're going to use a lot of cord ends like this, make a lot of necklaces of this type, then I'm just going to straighten out my little loop here. But I would suggest getting some mighty crimpers, and you can just look online and find those, or at your local jewelry supply store or whatever. You should be able to find them. And then I'm going to grab the other one and do the exact same thing. So I will go ahead and do this one off camera, just to shorten the film a little bit, but just exactly how I showed you do this one, do this one, okay. And we'll be back. So I have put both my ends on, and now I'm going to open one of the links of my chain, and I am just going to slide it on the little loop on the cord end here. And so I have opened it from side to side like I showed you earlier, and then I'm going to close this link side to side. So it's more of a twisting motion. Never pull your links apart, just twist. And then I'm going to get my other one and do the same thing. So go ahead and connect the other side of the chain that you've prepared with your toggle, and we'll be back. And there you have it. As you can see, I have a really pretty little necklace. These hang so pretty on the neck. It seems like they look kind of wimpy, but when you put them on your neck, they lay so pretty. They lay in just the right place. And of course, you're going to adjust where they lay with the amount of chain you use. So you can make it longer so it lays further down your chest. You can adjust it to where it lays just below your throat, or just at collarbone length, basically. And I'm going to show you a couple of the others I've made. So I've used just a little bit different bead on this one, and just a slightly different color of brown cording for this one. But they're pretty similar. For this one, I used the white cording on this collection here, and it seems to be a little stiffer and a little harder to work with. So I made my knots just 3 coils instead of 4, because the knots were bigger and stiffer and just a little bit different to work with, as was this cording. This cording also was a little bit harder to work with. It was a little stiffer. I don't know if the dye lots make it different because this is more natural and this isn't. I don't know. I don't know that much about leather, and I don't claim to. I just know that as I'm working with it, there was a difference in the way the leather coiled and felt in my hands. So I have made a variety of these because I think they're so cute. And actually, I've already sold the one I just made. Someone went in brown, so either one of these two. So that's what they look like, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Bye-bye.